Russia and Ukraine. So your expertise has been very much in demand in the last year or so. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Siri, and thanks very much for this opportunity to talk about the current war that is raging in Europe, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And the way that I wanted to connect this to our themes of autocratization and resistance to autocratization flows from what has become in large part a dominant interpretation of this war as a war of a democracy against autocracy. And there's a lot of truth to that, for sure. And we have, with my friend and co-author, Oksana Shevel, a book coming out that seeks to explain how we got to this point of this full-scale invasion and this war in the middle of Europe, but especially how why Ukraine has resisted this invasion with such unity and determination and effectiveness, which a lot of people did not expect. I mean, we talk a lot about how Putin miscalculated and didn't expect this resistance, but the reality is that many in the West also did not expect this level of resistance. The countries that are now helping Ukraine resist thought that in the first few days, Ukraine would crumble and the war would be over very quickly. So in this book that we have coming out in the fall, we tell a story about an escalatory cycle that has unfolded over the past 30 years between Russian re-imperialization efforts, which in the beginning were much more subtle, but escalated over time, and Ukraine's commitment to its independent statehood, which also was tentative in the beginning, but solidified and entrenched over time. And this escalatory cycle really produced dramatic divergence between the two states in terms of regime type. They produced this dramatic divergence in which Russia increasingly consolidated a more and more repressive autocracy, and Ukraine increasingly committed to competitive politics, entrenched those, and is now committed to developing its democracy further. It is this divergence in regime type that goes a long way to explain Ukraine's current resistance to what basically amounts to an outside autocratization attempt, because it is clear to everyone that if Russia succeeds in invading all of Ukraine and subordinating it, it would be imposing an authoritarian regime on the Ukrainian population. So, so what I wanted to do, and hopefully I can do it in about 10 minutes, is show you how this process unfolded. And I want to start with this idea that in the beginning, when the Soviet Union collapsed and Russia and Ukraine emerged into as two independent states, it wasn't, they were in fact very close in perceptions of not only close in terms of how outsiders perceived, starting from the same point, but they perceived each other as very close and very similar states. In fact, in the very beginning, what we see here is answers by public opinion, this public opinion in Ukraine, polls conducted using the same question over time over the last 30 years, and asking what should be the relationship between Russia and Ukraine. Should the two be the same? Should the two reunite in one state? And that is the gray line that you see over time. Should they be two independent states, but very friendly to each other, have a special relationship with each other? Or should they be two independent states with a relationship that's like any other relationship between two independent states, nothing special about it? And you see that in the beginning of the period, we have a significant proportion of Ukrainians who thought that they should be in one state with Russia, that they should reunite somehow. And another big part thought, well, no, we can be independent, but we want to have this special close relationship. And it was a minority that wanted to have a relationship which is just like any two independent foreign states and neighbors. And what we see is that over time, there is significant divergence in this. And the desire to be in one state quite quickly drops off. But the desire to maintain a special relationship, which is this orange line, was in fact very high. And you see that all the way up to 2013, this desire is very high. Now, what does this mean? Why 2013? This is when Ukraine has a second democratizing mass mobilization, the Euromaidan, when Ukrainians affirmed that they would like to continue to consolidate a democracy. And after this mobilizing event, after it ended in violence in 2014, but succeeded in recommitting Ukraine to democracy, Russia launched the first invasion of parts of Ukraine, Crimea, taking Crimea and jump-starting an insurgency in eastern Ukraine. And you see that over the next, you see that already in just a couple of months, between 2013 and between February of 2014 and May of 2014, after Russia invades, that significantly public opinion drops off and says, well, maybe a friendly relationship between our two countries is not going to be possible. However, throughout the last 8 years, Ukrainians maintained a desire to somehow be able to maintain this special relationship. You see that that there is a similar proportions of Ukrainians who are committed to having a regular foreign countries relationship between Russia and Ukraine and a special one. And with the full-scale invasion in 22, we see this divergence go off the charts. And indeed, what we have right now is this really stark divergence. Ukraine and Russia's relationship today is summed up very eloquently by Ukrainian President Zelensky when Russia was bombing Ukraine's energy infrastructure in the winter. He spoke to the Russians and he said, read my lips, do we want to be without gas? Without energy or without you, we choose without you. Without lights or without you, without you. Without water or without you, we choose without you. Without food or without you, without you. Cold, starvation, darkness, and thirst are not as frightening and mortal to us as your friendship and fraternity. So basically, this relationship is now over, and Ukraine is simply trying to extricate itself from it. And we see this divergence over time unfold in not only in Ukraine's strategic orientation, So here you see how it unfolded in terms of a desire by Ukrainians to join the EU. Again, the dividing, the really important moments are 2014, when the first aggression started, and now off the charts, united commitment by Ukrainians to join the EU. And of course, the much discussed desire to join NATO, which again sort of illustrates how gradually this happened and how Ukrainians maintained sort of a commitment to try to maintain this neutrality and not antagonize Russia. So you see that even after the first aggression, yes, the desire to join NATO increases dramatically, but it's still only about half of the population. The other half is still continuing to hold on to this idea that they can continue to be neutral and have a friendlier relationship. That has evaporated since the full-scale invasion, and there is unity and commitment to get protection from NATO. But that also, this divergence is also related to a commitment to democracy, which is the topic that we're discussing here. And I wanted to show you this quite striking map here of Ukraine, because there is a lot of talk, and it's basically misinformation about how Ukraine is divided in two parts, how the eastern part may actually be committed may want to be with Russia. And here we have a map that illustrates that across Ukraine's regions, in the middle of the 2022, once the war has already started, we have a tremendous commitment to democracy. The question is, how important is it for you that Ukraine continues continues to develop a fully functioning democracy? And the two questions, it's important, and it's very important. Across Ukraine's regions, we have over 90% of the population saying that this is important or very important to them. And this is a jump of 20% from before the full-scale invasion. So in a way, this aggression by Russia has solidified a broad range commitment to democracy in Ukraine. And finally, I wanted briefly to tie this to the process of rule of law reforms and transformation, and illustrate that the aggression that started in 2014 really has had a significant impact on solidifying reform commitments within Ukraine to reforming the judiciary in a good way, making it more independent, more powerful, and rooting out corruption. And in the last 9 years, Ukraine has built a brand new and very extensive anti-corruption institutional architecture, has relaunched the Supreme Court, reformed the Constitutional Court. And all of this has happened with really active involvement in the process by civil society groups. Civil society has become an informal institution in this process, affecting it. We have an article, and I point out here that we have this article because one of my co-authors is a last year alumni of this Bergen exchanges. And reforms have not only continued, but sped up since the full-scale invasion. So rather than reducing judicial power and curtailing independence, in the midst of a very real security concern and security, dire security situation that Ukraine is in, Ukraine is potentially witnessing an increase in both. And I'm done.